How's everybody doing? This is the second episode of the Until I'm Famous podcast, and I got like a lot to talk about, so we're gonna get straight to it. Um, First things first, I was able to watch the Last Dance documentary, and my goodness, that's a good documentary. It's like 10 times better than the last documentary I watched, and the last documentary I watched was the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, which that was a good one too. I mean, it was very dark, but it's. I think the Last Dance documentary is just really, it's just built different, not as negative, not as dark. It's pretty it's kind of positive, and it's just showing light on something that I kind of want to see. I kind of did want to see the Surviving R. Kelly documentary because like after I watched the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, I was like, I didn't need to see that. That was pretty. I'm a little messed up, but after watching this Last Dance documentary, I'm like, all right, y'all. All right, this is what I need. I need to watch this. So the good thing about the Last Dance documentary that I'm watching is like just seeing what Jordan go through. It's like because you always hear about Jordan and you always like or being famous of that aspect of like that magnitude of Jordan, which it's not a lot of people that can say that they was Jordan famous. Probably in their heyday. Like LeBron's probably like the closest thing, but you can't say because LeBron's big, but LeBron has like a bunch of haters, so he will never be as big as Jordan because Jordan didn't have that many haters as LeBron has. Because LeBron, because of LeBron's haters, they won't really put him up on that pedestal. But he's still, I mean, LeBron James, he's big as fuck. But LeBron James ain't finna be getting called Jesus walking around. Like they called Jordan Jesus. And that was just and no one had a problem with it. Like not the Christians, not the Catholics. No one had a problem with calling LeBron James. Michael Jordan Jesus. That's how big Michael Jordan was. Like you knew that documentary was gonna be good. It's like when you see Jordan pull up in the black Corvette, and he hop out with his fucking I think was the 13s or whatever fucking color shoe, whatever shoe they was, and he had on a beret and he going to practice. I'm like this nigga too icy. He just know he got it. And that documentary was good. Like you get to watch all aspects of how everybody is, and that was like the beautiful part about it. Like I didn't know Scottie Pippen, what Scottie Pippen went through. I didn't know nothing about Scottie Pippen. I just always thought Scottie Pippen was just I thought he was just a regular dude. Like came from nothing, made himself to something. I didn't know fucking his dad had fucking was a handicapped and his older brother was a handicap. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And that's like you see like the little stuff that changes people's perspectives as they get older, and you see how it shapes people, and and then how much money meant to people. Like, cause Scottie Pippen wasn't making shit, and the only reason why he didn't go for a bigger contract because he didn't want to risk it. Because he felt like if let's say I go to a different spot and they don't pay me as much as this, and I'm like, that's how serious money was. They kind of found out Scottie Pippen was making like he was like the 116th least 116th paid player. Like he wasn't making that much money, and that's crazy for us. This motherfucker won 5 rings and he ain't making that much money. But it got him at a discount, and I think because he wasn't making that much money, they was able to win as much. And it's shitty to say, but like they was able to get all the pieces. So they had all the pieces, but you're not making as much money. It's kind of like that shit that LeBron James did when he went to the Heat, where they all took pay cuts just to play for the Heat, and then like they was able to run a proper amount of rings. They only really won 2, but they did that for but they did that shit by choice. Scottie Pippen really didn't have a choice, but but looking at that shit, you really get to see the aspects of Scottie Pippen's life, and it's good. It's a good documentary. And then like the Dennis Rodman aspect, which I already knew about I already knew about Dennis Rodman and how Dennis Rodman was because I watched that. He had a documentary that was like 2 hours long, and it was a really good documentary. Like that documentary was really good because it's like a lot of shit. Like you get to really see inside one of the most interesting men on the planet. Like Dennis Rodman was really like it was him in competition with the nigga from the Dos Equis bottle. Like Dennis Rodman was that big, and you get to see inside his head. And then, but in that Dennis Rodman documentary, it was like it's sad too, because it was like you get to see certain things, like how it hurts him not being able to be a good father to his kids because he doesn't feel like he can. And watching that, it's like, oh, that's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Seeing the fact of like he just knows he can't be a good father, and like since he knows he can't be a good father, he stays away. So he's not really around his kids as much as he was, because he felt like he just couldn't be a good father, and then he just couldn't handle that little life of just being a good father. He just needed to be around shit that filled the hole, which is probably like what drugs, alcohol, partying, shit like that, women, anything that can fill that hole. And I don't know if that's the shit about it. It's just like really like sad to see. Like when he was watching when he did a Hall of Fame speech, he had like cried, because he said the only thing I wish I could change is to me to be a better father. And I was like, oh, this is just watching that aspect. So I kind of like already knew coming in on this Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary that how it was gonna touch on Dennis Rodman, which because I already knew about all that shit now because I watched that documentary. And well, that documentary is good though. They even had Kobe on there for like, I wish they had like more of Kobe, but they even had Kobe on there, and it was basically Kobe just giving it up to Michael. But you get to see how they looked at Kobe coming in, because Kobe was like 19, and you got to see how they was looking at Kobe. They called him like the little Laker boy, because they only know Kobe was like fucking Kobe as the guy who shot 4 air balls. And watch it, like when he was looking at Michael Jordan's like looking at Kobe, is like basically looking at a mirror image of himself, because he always said Kobe gonna make this shit into a 1-on-1 game. And that's how Michael Jordan was back in the day. Michael Jordan was only him, and he didn't care about. He had George Gervin on his team, and was just like, I'm the best player. Like his main mission on his first when he was like in 1985 was, I'm gonna take the leader. I'm gonna find the leader of this team, and I'm gonna take him out. And that's Kobe. And that's the funny part about it, But back on Dennis Rodman, it kind of like helps me segue into like what I want to talk about. So, I love comedy, and I love all aspects of comedy, and I love old school comedians. I think all of old school comedians are funny, but I love like just the history of comedy, like seeing what people had to go through in comedy, because it's beautiful, especially when you see people hold on to their integrity as best as they can, because a lot of times a lot of people they would push something to the side just to get to this next level, and some people feel like pushing that to the side is like, if I let you get away with this, what else can you get away with? And I like watching people with that kind of integrity, which is like, when you see somebody with that kind of integrity, they always get the respect aspect of it, but they never really get, because they never really get the money, because you get the respect, but you never really get the money. And that's when it comes to like the comedy shit, where you have to make a choice of like, do you want the money or do you want your integrity? And that's a tough decision for anybody. I don't care what anybody say. Like, money or integrity. Like, especially if you came from nothing and then you finally get a chance to get on and you got to do something that's like hella compromising in your integrity. And that's a tough one. That's like kind of also like segues into like the black men wearing a dress situation, right? Where you got all these, famous comedians, famous black comedians that have worn a dress, and like everybody knows the Dave Chappelle interview when they talking about they wanted him to do the scene in Blue Streak, and he had to wear a dress, and he was like, I don't see how that adds to anything about wearing a dress, and like, what is this thing of why do all the black men have to wear dresses? And that's a tough one, because like as a comedian, your job was to like entertain. All right, so like that's why, like comedians who wear dresses, they was trying to entertain. It wasn't like I'm trying to do something because they made me do it. I'm just trying to entertain y'all to the best of my abilities. Like when you look at Martin wear a dress, you don't think nothing of it because his But I think the reason why you don't think nothing of it is because he made the decision to do that shit. Also Robin Harris. Robin Harris is another. Robin Harris is like one of those comedians who is revered by everybody. People love Robin Harris, and he wore a dress. Like I was watching one of his old tapes where he was trying to put on his friends, and the beginning skit was him wearing a dress, which is, as a black man, wearing the dress is a tough one. Cause I don't know. I want to tell myself I wouldn't wear a dress, but then again, I never know. I don't know. I want to say I wouldn't wear a dress, but my favorite comedians wear dresses. So what makes me different from them? Especially if I have the say so in it, like I wouldn't do it unless I want to do it. Like unless it's my goal. I'm saying I'm gonna do it, not like somebody says you should wear a dress. And especially like if somebody comes and tells me you should wear a dress, I'm not gonna do it because no, I'm not gonna do it. But if like I say, what will make this shit even better, and I make this thought and I'll go, I should wear a dress for this shit. Which, saying this shit out loud don't sound like, oh my god, what will make anything better for you wearing a dress? But it's a lot of things that you can do. But that dress situation is just like, yeah, it's just kind of weird because like, if they ask me if I like, let's say if I had to dress up to be a slave, like for like a serious movie or something like that, I don't think I'd probably be able to do that. Like, cause I think dressing up as a slave is probably worse than wearing a dress. Because as many slave movies that they are, I commend the actors that actually, the black actors that actually do the slave movies, because that seems like a very hard movie to do. To just because like those slave movies are just, I just don't think I would be able to do that. Like I think that would be more difficult for me. Instead of wearing a dress, wearing a dress is more easier than me being a slave, because I just wouldn't want to do that, and because I would feel uncomfortable all the way. Like I just can't sit there and just allow you to, talk to me like that. Like I just, even though you're acting, I don't think I can do that. Like I don't think I can just do the slave movie. Like the closest thing I may be able to do a slave movie was Django, and and Django was meant to be funny. But that movie was Django was a good movie, but that was meant to be funny and action movie and like kind of like bigging up of like somebody. But I don't think I can just do that because that's just, I'd rather not have to do that. I wouldn't want to be a slave. That's something that I would say no to. No matter what the cases was, I would say no to that. I don't think I can just be a slave. That's a rough one, but I think wearing a dress isn't as bad as everybody says it is. As the black community says it is, because it can't be that bad. Famous comedians wear, like, how many people wear dresses? It can't be as bad as you think. It's not that bad. Like, it's not that bad. But yeah, there was this comedian named Pat Cooper. He was a comedian from like the 40s or 50s, whatever year, and he started off to now, because I think he still does. Well, he probably not doing comedy now because he's like 90 something, and I think he's still alive. I don't know for sure, but when he first started doing comedy, it wasn't, that's not a natural thing, especially back in the day. People wasn't just coming out saying I want to do comedy, because comedy wasn't the forefront of things. Back in the day, you used to go to work and go home. You had a job and you just maintained your life off that. And Pat Cooper is he's an Italian comedian, where that's how they did it. And when coming up with the Italian lifestyles, how you work and you go home, he had he succumbed to that. He was living that. He got married, young. And he was living that lifestyle, but it just wasn't. It was like something was missing. Like he just felt like he should be. He found more entertaining people, and he's like, comedy is something that I should do. And he started doing comedy, started doing open mics and stuff like that. And his family hated him for that, because his family was like, you're disrespecting the Italian culture by doing comedy, making fun of us and stuff like that. And he was like, man, this is something that I like doing. I'm not gonna stop. And like so his and so he like so eventually him and his wife, and because he had 2 kids, and eventually him and his wife ended up getting a divorce. And the reason why they got a divorce is because uh like his wife was a hardcore Italian, from New York and shit like that. They had like his sister, his wife's sisters and brothers, like beat the shit out of him. I don't know why. I don't remember why. I haven't read the book in a minute, but I don't remember why they did it. But they beat him up pretty bad, and he was like, yo, I can't take this shit. I'm leaving. And he stopped talking to his wife, like in full totality. Stopped talking to his wife, and he stopped talking to his well, he tried to talk to his kids, but you know how that go. But after he stopped talking to him, he just started doing comedy even harder, and then now he started to get famous, where he started to make money doing comedy. Like now that doesn't have to, because he was started off with making $10 a week for a whole show, like for a whole week. And let's say you perform like an hour for hour a day for a whole week, you're only making $10. And when you come from that and you're making as much money as he was making back in the day, which is a lot, I guess. And he came from nothing. And then when he started to get a little buzz, he did his first TV appearance. That's when his family come out, says, you should pay us because you're talking about us and you owe us money. And he's like, I don't owe y'all nothing. Like, y'all didn't support me. Like, y'all hate me. Y'all hated me doing this. I don't owe y'all guys nothing. I'm not going to give y'all nothing because I don't owe y'all nothing. And that started a riff where he was like, you know what? Why do y'all come? Where was y'all at when I needed you? When I was, when I didn't have nowhere to go, and I was sitting there working for $8, $8 a whole week. Where was y'all at then? And he ended up meeting another woman, and he ended up getting married to her after he got divorced. And he just ended up moving on. He moved on with his life. He stopped talking to his whole family, even his kids. He stopped talking to everybody. And, but he was still, he's still known. And he's still, pretty famous because he's a comedian and everybody knows him. But he just doesn't associate with them. Like he pays for, certain bills that they need to get paid for. And if they need any kind of money, he's there for them on that aspect. Like, cause he still paid child support. And you know how that go. He still pays child support. And he still, was there for that aspect. But he just wasn't there for his kids to, be a father. Because he tried to be there for his kids like that, for a father, but the mom wouldn't allow him to. So so when he had like a court order to visit his kids, like he wants to, spend time with his kids. But every time he tries to spend time with his kids, he wants to spend time with his kids alone. And the mom was always there. It's like she wouldn't leave, and she goes, "Can you please leave? I have a court order for you to leave, and you won't leave." And she won't leave. And she wanted him to be the father of his kids under her terms. And he was like, I'm not finna do that. I can't do that. Like that. Like, no. Like, I'm not finna be the father of my kids under your terms. Because it's not under your terms. I made these kids too. So when he couldn't get past through the mom, couldn't get through the mom and all her aunties and uncles and his family, he stopped talking to all of them. And he eventually ended up moving on. And he became Pat Cooper. And, and he gotten big. He had a really good comedy career, and he became really big in comedy. And he's not known when you think of comedians like George Carlin or Richard Pryor, but he's known to some, and which is good. At least he's still known to some, because I know him, and I'm not supposed to know who Pat Cooper is. Let's be honest. Like, I'm not supposed to be like, oh, I know who Pat Cooper is, because Pat Cooper's not like, he never got big time, but he got to some point where you can be known. He's a great comedian, and I love him for that, right? But the reason why I'm bringing up Pat Cooper is because whenever he when he became 60, Howard Stern, if you know who Howard Stern is, he had this radio show, and Howard Stern found out how funny and how amazing Pat Cooper is. How funny of a comedian Pat Cooper is, and his antics and all the stuff that Pat Cooper does. He says, I'm gonna have Pat Cooper on the show. And at the time, Pat Cooper was 60, so it was not everybody's really as funny as they are at 60. besides Eddie Murphy. So he had Pat Cooper on the show, and then now Pat Cooper's stock started rising. So now people are really starting to realize, okay, this guy they have on the show is funny. Pat Cooper's hilarious. And when they had Pat Cooper on the show, and like he started to become bigger, he started to become, getting, back famous again, so to say. And as he started getting back famous again, guess who comes out of nowhere? His family. And they come out of nowhere, and they tried to expose him, like he wasn't a good father and he never was there, yada yada yada. And like the main thing he was saying, like, I never said I was a good father. I never said I was any of these things that y'all saying that I've said I was. And he says he was just, because like Pat Cooper was at a point where he was just done with it, and he was just really like frustrated to the point where he was just like, I don't fuck with my family, fuck the family, fuck all y'all. Yeah, y'all didn't do shit for me. Y'all never did anything for me. Fuck my fucking family, my family. I have my wife and whoever I take care of at the time. I don't need y'all. And like, so his family, try to use him as like kind of like a scapegoat, to use him to see if they can find some way to defame him, because they just don't like the fact how this guy is this comfortable not talking to his family. And he went on this show called Geraldo Rivera, and on the show Geraldo Rivera, they tried to like get to try to make people feel bad for the family. But within that show, they don't understand who they was dealing with. They dealing with somebody who's really, really, really funny, and he's mean. Cause like I said, mean shit is funny. And instead of him, cause they was trying to expose him. And Geraldo Rivera's show is known for like exposing people. So that's what they're like known for. To like they used to have like racist white guys talk to racist black guys. So that's what the show is known for. So Pat Cooper goes on to the show, and it was like, what you're listening to is like he's trying to let everybody see how bad of a person Pat Cooper is. But Pat Cooper is like 60. He's like done. He's like almost done with life. Like he's closer to death than living. And he's just sitting there like he goes, and he says some of the shit that I picked apart. Like the shit that really got me was, which is funny because he told his kid, he goes, he says, you was never a father, right? And he goes, well, I didn't want to be a father. and then he was like, and then he told his kid, he says, you're not that thrilling. And that was the main goal. He said, he told his own kid that you're not that thrilling. And you brought Pat Cooper on the show to expose him, but what you end up really getting was your feelings really hurt, to have somebody tell you that you're not that thrilling. But his feelings wasn't hurt. He knew all about this shit. He knew what he was trying to do. He knows if you push this man to that point, he's gonna snap. So you got what you wanted. But everybody, when he said that, everybody was like, oh my God. I was like, he needed that. Because, you knew what you was doing, and you got what you wanted. Like, you got what you wanted. And I know you probably wonder, like, oh, why did I go into this long story about Pat Cooper just to get to the point of a man telling his kids that you're not that thrilling, and I didn't have to be a father? Well, because I feel like it's okay to cut people off if they're not helping you out in your life. It's okay to stop talking to people, no matter who it is. If they're not helping you succeed, or like not helping you, push forward to where you want to go, and not getting you to the next place, it's okay to cut them off. No matter if it's your kids or your ex-wife or whoever. Sometimes, the bus you taking don't really have enough seats for everybody to sit on. Sometimes it's only a couple of seats for you and whoever you want to bring, but sometimes the people that you want to take don't want to go where you want to go. And it's okay to cut people off. And Pat Cooper telling his kids they wasn't that thrilling is amazing. Actually it's not. It's by far the most fucked up shit ever. But I wasn't offended by it, when I heard it. Because, like, I was just like, yo, that little motherfucker need that shit. Because you knew what you was doing. You brought that motherfucker on that show to get exposed. And you knew this motherfucker did not like you. He told you this shit plenty of times. He don't like you, and then you got what you wanted. All right, I'm done talking about Pat Cooper. I'm done. Fuck, that was a long time talking about Pat Cooper. So I actually have a list now. So my podcast does have some structure now. What could I talk about now? There's a video out right now of Mike Tyson. I guess he's getting back into like actually fighting now. That like now everybody's like going kind of like crazy because they still finding out like Mike Tyson still got it. I'm like, y'all guys should have knew Mike Tyson still got it. Like, first off, this is not, y'all not talking about some other motherfucker. Y'all talking about Mike Tyson, who to me is like, I think he's my favorite fighter of all time, because it's kind of hard to really just like, when you see Mike Tyson, this motherfucker was just scary. Like, and he actually knew how to fight. It's not like none of this shit look wild. All this shit was just crisp. Like, he just had, everything was crisp, combinations and all that. He looked like a minimum, like, this motherfucker was 19 years old, knocking out, grown men at 19. He became the baddest man on the planet at 19. Yeah, like, fucking, and you don't just lose that ability to like knock somebody out if you've been doing it since you was a little kid. And Mike Tyson never lost that. Like, and he always, like, Mike Tyson always been a big dude. You never seen Mike Tyson like obese, fat. Now he always look like he can go a good 3 rounds with you, like, no matter what. Like, so funny, like, cause back, it was a little buzz cause the games manager, Whack 100, had got into it with Mike about some Tupac shit, and Mike had, I guess, put the beats on this nigga because he was talking shit about Tupac, which it's all speculation. We don't really know. All I know is you just seen Whack 100 on Instagram taking a lot of pain pills because he said his face is all fucked up. But the video never came out, so since the video didn't come out, I guess it's not true. You know how that go, right? Everybody's like all excited because he said he's gonna start doing exhibition matches, which is gonna be good. But then again, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him just lose. Because like, let's say he do an exhibition match and he's like all serious and he loses, and that would hurt my heart. I don't need to see that shit. Like, I don't need to see 54-year-old Mike Tyson getting beat up or losing a fight. But I would like to see him. I would like to see him knock somebody out again. But then again, I'm weird now because I don't like watching knockout videos no more. I used to be able to I don't know what the fuck. I don't know if I just became soft all of a sudden. But I used to be able to just really just like watch all kind of crazy shit. But now I just like I just can't see that shit. Like, I think it just goes overboard now. Like, watching a knockout video, because like after you knock somebody out, it's like usually you knock somebody out like one hit a quitter and they be out. Nah, after you knock somebody out, you just see somebody after he knocked out, you see somebody just stomping on that nigga head and shit. I'm like, oh, I can't watch that because like I just in my mind I only imagine like, yo, ain't nobody gonna help. They just gonna let this motherfucker just get permanent brain damage, but they don't care no more. All right, so I guess I'm just gonna wrap this one up and just come back to you guys next week. What's a better way to wrap it up? That don't sound too good to wrap it up like this. See you guys next week. This is the Untill on Famous podcast, and thank you for listening to me.